Before the fire stole everything, my life was simple. We lived in a modest bungalow in Akoka, tucked in a noisy corner where children played in sand, dogs barked at night, and the scent of Mama Sada's puff-puff filled the air every morning. My name is Mof. I was 9 when the world ended. But before that, I was just a girl who loved cartoons, sugar cubes, and sleeping in my mother's lap. Finish your Gary, Mof. Mama called from the kitchen. I poked at the okra soup, frowning. But I want bread and tea. You want bread and tea? Her voice came with footsteps, and I scrambled to eat the cold Gary before she got to me. Mama had soft hands and a firm voice. She worked as a nurse at the general hospital and still found time to plait my hair into neat cornrows every Sunday night. Papa was a tall, quiet man who loved books and called me his sunshine. Every night, he'd come home smelling of petrol and ink from his printing business. He never shouted. He'd just say, "Mof, your mother is the law. I am only the judge. Obey her before I sentence you." I loved them deeply. Our home was laughter and evening devotion, Mama's stories of her village life, Papa's jokes about politicians, and me sitting between them during blackout nights with a hand fan, listening to the radio. But peace is a fragile thing in Nigeria. And one candle destroyed it all. Welcome back to African Love Chronicles, your favorite place for stories soaked in passion and soul-deep romance. If you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment to tell us your favorite part of the story. Your support keeps these love tales flowing strong. Shout out to all my amazing listeners from the USA, Florida, South Africa, Nigeria, and Jamaica. I see you, I appreciate you, and I'm sending you love with every word I speak. Now, grab your popcorn and let's dive in. It was a Wednesday. PHCN had struck again. Mama lit a candle and placed it on the windowsill in the sitting room. I remember because I was watching Superstory and the generator had no fuel. "Don't sleep off without blowing out that candle," Papa had said. But we all did. I woke up coughing. Thick smoke filled my room. My eyes burned. My skin prickled. I screamed, "Mama!" I stumbled out into the hallway, and flames were already dancing on the curtains. The wooden frame of our home hissed and cracked. I saw Papa rush into my room, trying to grab my bag, coughing, shouting, "Mof, run! Go outside. Now." I didn't want to go. I was crying, terrified. He shoved me toward the back door. I heard Mama scream. The next thing I remember was the cold earth outside. I ran barefoot, screaming into the night. Neighbors were already gathering. Someone pulled me away as the roof caved in. They never came out. That was the end of my world. After the fire, I couldn't speak for 2 days. I was taken to a police station, then a shelter. I refused food. I didn't cry. Not even when they showed me the burial notice. I just sat. A woman named Miss Ronk finally coaxed me into speaking. "What's your name?" she asked softly. I whispered, "Mof." She blinked. "Full name?" I couldn't remember. I didn't want to. Eventually, a family friend was contacted, Mr. Femi. He and my father had gone to university together. I remembered him vaguely, a large man with a booming laugh who once brought me chin-chin during Christmas. He came with his wife, and after a few words with the shelter director, I was taken to their home in Ikeja. That's where I met him. He opened the door. Tall. Slim. Clean-shaven. His white t-shirt clung to a lean frame, and his voice was surprisingly gentle. "This is Tulu," Mr. Femi said. "Our son. He's in university." Tolu bent a little so our eyes met. "Hi, Mof." I nodded shyly. He smiled. "Do you like cartoons?" I blinked. He knelt beside me. "I've got Tom and Jerry DVDs. We can watch together." He was the only one who didn't ask if I was okay. He just sat with me. That night, I sat cross-legged on his bed while he played Tom and Jerry on a dusty DVD player. I didn't laugh, but I watched. He brought me Gala and Coke. I didn't speak, but I ate. That's how it began. A boy raising a broken girl. A strange home slowly becoming mine. Years passed. Mr. and Mrs. Femi were kind but always busy. They traveled often, business meetings, conferences, church events. They provided everything. But it was Tolu who raised me. He helped with my homework. Taught me how to fry plantain without burning it. Scolded me when I poured water on my books. I can't do everything for you, Mof, he said one day, handing me a mop after I spilled juice. I grumbled. But you're the adult. He raised an eyebrow. I'm 22. That's barely adult. But he never let me cry alone. I called him Uncle Tolu, not because I had to, but because it felt right. Like a title that wrapped him in something bigger than age. He was my calm. My protector. And slowly, unknowingly, he became something else. I was 15 the first time I noticed the way his shirt clung to his chest. We were in the kitchen. He was making yam porridge. I leaned against the doorway, arms folded. You know, I said, you could probably be a chef. You cook better than most women I know. He glanced at me with a grin. And you're suddenly an expert in Nigerian cuisine? I shrugged. I know what tastes good. Then you should know how to cook it too. Ugh, I rolled my eyes, pushing away from the door and walking over. Teach me. He handed me the wooden spoon. You stir while I chop. I did, quietly for a moment. Then I asked, do you have a girlfriend? He paused. Just for a beat. Then continued chopping the onions. Why? He asked. I'm just curious. No, I don't. Why not? He smiled again, not looking at me. You ask too many questions, Mof. I wanted to ask more, like what kind of woman he liked, or if he noticed how I'd started using lip gloss, but I didn't. Not yet. That night, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. I wasn't a child anymore. My hips had started to curve. My chest had begun to fill out. My lips weren't just for pouting anymore. And I didn't want him to see me as a child anymore. The first time I got suspended, it felt like a badge of honor. Tolu didn't think so. You think this is funny? He snapped, pacing the living room. I slouched into the couch, arms folded, eyes glazed. They overreacted. It was just a little fight. You split the girl's lip. She called me a bastard. I warned her. He stopped pacing. His jaw tightened. You don't get to solve things with violence. Do you hear me? She started it. I don't care. His voice bounced off the walls. The house grew quiet. He rarely raised his voice. But when he did, something in me caved a little. He looked at me, really looked. I'd grown taller. My curves sharper. My tone defiant. He didn't know what to do with me anymore. Go to your room, he said, finally. We'll talk when I've calmed down. I didn't move. Just stared at him. I'm not a child, I said. You can't talk to me like I'm 10. You're acting like you're 5. I stood. Then maybe you should have left me at the orphanage. The silence after that was thick enough to choke on. He didn't respond. Just turned and walked out of the house, slamming the door behind him. The day I lied to Tolu, I felt a thrill ripple through me. I told him I was sleeping at Amaka's house. In truth, I was going to a party in Ikeja. I wore a black dress that clung to my hips and borrowed red heels from a senior girl in school. Be careful, Tolu had said as I left. And text me when you get there. I smiled sweetly. Of course, uncle. He watched me from the balcony, arms folded. He had that protective look again. The one I used to find comforting. Now, I found it annoying. At the party, boys looked at me like I was a grown woman. Someone offered me a drink. I took it. Another one asked if I wanted to dance. I did. I laughed too loudly. Swung my hips on purpose. Flirted with a boy named Michael who smelled like cheap cologne and called me fine babe. I was trying to feel something. Anything. But I didn't. Because when I closed my eyes, all I could think about was Tolu. The lies continued. Small ones. Then bigger. I told him I was studying after school. I was really hanging out at the mall. I said I needed money for a textbook. I used it to get braids and buy lip gloss. I started wearing shorter skirts. Experimented with eyeliner. I watched YouTube tutorials on how to make my lips look fuller. I was obsessed. Not just with becoming a woman. but with making him notice that I already was one. One afternoon, he walked into the sitting room while I was watching TV, sprawled on the couch in a spaghetti strap top. He paused. I looked up, pretended not to notice his gaze flicker over my shoulders, my chest. "You're not cold?" he asked. I shrugged. "Nope. I like it like this." He said nothing. Just grabbed the remote and changed the channel to football. "You didn't ask if I was watching that." "It's my house," he said. I smirked. "Your house, but you're never home." He glanced at me. "What's going on with you lately?" "Nothing," I said, sweetly. "Just growing up." He turned away. But I knew he felt it. The tension. The shift. He just didn't know what to do with it. Later that night. He was on a call in the kitchen. I overheard. "No, she's doing okay. Teenage stuff. She's acting out a bit, but I'm handling it." A pause. "Yeah, she's beautiful. Honestly, sometimes I don't even know how to deal. She's not that little girl anymore." My breath caught. He noticed. I didn't sleep that night. My body was buzzing with electricity. He saw me. Finally. But now I had to make him feel me. Even if I had to burn down every rule to do it. But Tulu avoided me. That much was clear. It wasn't obvious at first, the way he'd leave earlier than usual in the morning or return home late with tired eyes and barely a word beyond "have you eaten" or "good night." But I noticed. I noticed everything. Especially the way his eyes no longer lingered on me the way I wished they would. Not even for a second. After I turned 16, something shifted. I felt it deep in my bones, that aching awareness that I was no longer the child he once bathed and braided. I was growing into my own curves, my own sass, my own secret hunger for attention. And I wanted it from him. But Tulu had buried himself in work. His internship at the engineering firm was ending soon, and he'd started talking about his national service. That meant more time outside. More escape. More distance. One Thursday evening. Tolu stood in the hallway, typing something furiously on his phone. He looked tired, his jaw clenched and brow furrowed, still dressed in his work shirt, half untucked. I stepped into view, leaning against the wall. "You don't talk to me anymore," I said. He didn't look up. "You've been doing fine without me." My lips twitched. "I still live in your house. Or did you forget?" He sighed, finally raising his eyes to meet mine. They scanned me briefly, pausing at the hem of the sleeveless top I wore before quickly darting upward. "Go wear something decent, a joke." I smiled, slow and deliberate. "Why? Is this indecent?" He turned and walked off toward his room. I followed. "Tolu, talk to me. Why are you pretending I'm invisible?" He stopped by his door, his back still to me. "Because if I don't, I might say something I can't take back." I blinked. "Like what?" Silence. "Say it," I whispered. "Please." He faced me now. "You're a child." "Am I?" "You're 16, Mof. And you're 26. You've changed my diapers and made me OG when I had fever." "I get it." I stepped closer, my voice lowering. "But that was then. This is now." He looked down at me with something stormy in his eyes, anger or fear, I wasn't sure. "You don't know what you're doing," he said. I placed my hand on his chest. "Then teach me." That's when he jerked back like my touch burned him. Enough. The next morning. Tolu didn't come home that night. He didn't come home the next night either. I overheard Auntie Remy speaking on the phone, something about boarding school, about distance and letting her cool off. Then I heard her say the one word that broke my heart open. "Abroad." "No." I screamed, storming into the sitting room. "You can't send me away." Tolu's mother looked up from her seat, startled but not unkind. "Mof, we're not punishing you. We're trying to give you a better future." "I don't want a better future. I stopped myself. Then silently. I want Tolu." 2 weeks later. I was on a plane to the UK. No goodbye from Tolu. Just a note, handed to me by the driver. "Mof. I'm doing this because I love you. You need space to grow into the woman you're meant to be. One day, you'll thank me. Tulu. I tore the note in half before the plane took off. And I vowed, when I become the woman he claims I should be, he won't be able to resist me. 4 years later. London, age 20. I didn't go to the university they enrolled me in. I picked another, still good, still respectable, but far enough from their watchful eyes. I wanted to live. I wanted to experience freedom, the kind of freedom that taught me the power of heels, laughter, flirtation, and danger. The kind of freedom that still, every night, left me hungry for the boy who used to tuck me in. I learned fast. Men were easy to confuse. They thought they were in control until they weren't. Until I smiled a certain way or leaned just enough. I flirted and danced and partied, but I never gave myself to anyone. Because in my heart, it still beat for one person. And it wasn't until my graduation that I found out, he still beat for me too. On my graduation day. It was a rooftop celebration. Private. Close friends. A few bikini tops, a lot of shots, and a playlist that pulsed like my racing heart. I wore red. Not the blood red of love, but the fire red of rebellion. A bikini top under a mesh shirt, shorts that didn't qualify as decent in anyone's culture. Cheers to freedom. I shouted, raising my glass as everyone clinked theirs. And that's when I saw him. By the stairs. Tulu. My heart dropped. He stood frozen, like someone had slapped him. His eyes roamed over me, not like an uncle, not even like an angry brother, but like a man realizing the girl he once protected had become the woman he was afraid to want. I walked toward him slowly. You weren't invited, I said, my voice barely above the music. He didn't blink. Clearly. His jaw tightened, his hands clenched. Is this what you've been doing? I smiled. Is this why you came? He grabbed my wrist. We're leaving. And I stumbled trying to keep up his pace. Back at my flat. He slammed the door behind us. You lied, he said. You abandoned me, I shot back. He took a step forward. You're playing a dangerous game, Mulf. I took a step closer. Then play it with me. He stared at me, and for a second, the silence screamed louder than any slap. Then he turned away, his voice trembling. I can't. I'm not. You're still that little girl. No, I whispered. She died the day you left her. Lagos, 2 weeks later. The heat welcomed me like a slap. Lagos humidity wrapped around my skin like a punishment. Sticky. Relentless. The air reeked of exhaust fumes, sweat, and peppery street food. A sharp contrast to the soft breezes and flower-scented mornings of London. I hadn't spoken to Tolu since the night of the party. Not during the rushed flight booking. Not at the airport. Not during the 7-hour flight where he barely looked at me. And now, dumped back into this old life like a discarded toy, I was suffocating. The house in Lekki was still the same. Too clean. Too quiet. Too full of his presence. Tolu walked ahead of me as we stepped inside, dropped his keys on the marble console, then turned, jaw tight. Go to your room. I'll speak to you later. I opened my mouth to protest. But something in his eyes stopped me. It wasn't just anger. It was restraint. Like he was holding something inside. Something dangerous. I turned and climbed the stairs in silence. Pastel walls. Framed picture of me and his mom. Books I hadn't touched in years. I kicked off my sandals and flopped onto the bed. Then stared at the ceiling. Everything inside me buzzed. Guilt. Anger. Embarrassment. But most of all, confusion. Because a part of me had wanted him to see me that night. To notice how much I'd grown. To feel the shift. But not like that. Not with his jaw clenched and his voice trembling when he told me, put on some damn clothes, Mulf. And certainly not with him dragging me by the wrist in front of everyone like I was a child again. Tears gathered behind my eyes. I wiped them away. Later that night. The house was dark except for the soft glow of the kitchen light. I crept downstairs barefoot, my oversized tee brushing my thighs. I just needed water. But he was there, seated at the table, a drink in his hand. Scotch. His usual. He looked up. His eyes were bloodshot. You're awake. I couldn't sleep. He gestured toward the chair across from him. Sit. I hesitated. Then obeyed. Silence thickened between us. Finally, he spoke. His voice low. Measured. You embarrassed me, Mulf. I looked down at the table. I didn't mean. Yes, you did, he cut in. You meant to be seen. You wanted eyes on you. You wanted mine, too. I swallowed hard. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? I needed to see for myself. What you were doing. Who you'd become. A pause. Now I know. His words sliced through me like glass. I looked up sharply. So that's it? I'm back in Nigeria and grounded like a 13-year-old? You think this is about punishment? He said, voice rising. You think I flew halfway across the world to punish you? He stood, towering. I raised you, Mulf. I protected you. I gave up things, relationships, opportunities, for you. And this is how you thank me? I didn't ask you to. Don't, he growled. Don't you dare. I stood too, breathing hard. You don't own me, Tulu. I saved you, he shouted. From a life you wouldn't have survived. My throat tightened. I know that, I whispered. But I'm not a little girl anymore. Silence. Then, softer, I know. Our eyes locked. The room felt too small. Too hot. Too charged. You looked at me, I said, stepping closer. That night. Like you saw me differently. He turned his face away. I was angry. That's not what it was. Silence again. The kind that crackles with unspoken truths. He drained his glass and set it down with force. You should go to bed. I don't want to. His jaw ticked. Mulf. I reached out. Fingers brushed his arm. Warm skin. Strong muscle. He closed his eyes. You're playing with fire, he murmured. Maybe I want to burn. He opened his eyes, and for the briefest moment, I saw it. The war inside him. Then he stepped back. You're still a child in this house. And I'm still your guardian. That's the problem, I whispered. He said nothing. Just walked away, leaving the glass, the silence, and my pounding heart behind. Next morning. He was gone before I woke. A note on the counter. Out for meetings. Be back late. Don't leave the house. We'll talk. Tolu. I stared at it for a long time. Then tore it in half. And smiled. Because I'd gotten under his skin. Finally. The silence in the house was thick, not the peaceful kind. The suffocating kind. The kind that pressed against your chest and made every creak of the floorboard sound like a threat. I stared at the folded note again. His handwriting was as bold and neat as ever. Out for meetings. Be back late. Don't leave the house. We'll talk. Tolu. Don't leave the house. I scoffed, tossing the note on the dresser. He really thought I was still that girl who obeyed because I had nowhere else to go. That I'd sit in silence and wait, like a good little doll on the shelf, polished, untouched, and owned. But things had changed. I had changed. I stepped into the shower, the hot water washing away the ache in my shoulders, but not the weight in my chest. I could still feel the ghost of his fingers on my waist. Still see the storm in his eyes when he dragged me out of that party. And under all that fury? Desire. Raw. Hungry. Controlled, but only just. I had him. He just didn't know it yet. Later that morning. I made myself eggs, toast, and fruit, not out of hunger, but boredom. The kitchen was too clean. Too quiet. Every part of this house had his scent. His rules. His shadow. I ate in his black silk robe. The one he left hanging on his closet door. It swallowed my body but felt like him, and maybe that's why I didn't take it off. Maybe that's why I sat with my legs crossed on the stool, sipping juice like I belonged. Because I did. And I wanted him to see that when he walked in. But he didn't walk in that morning. Or that afternoon. Or even by sunset. By 7 p.m., I'd paced the living room 5 times, texted Zizi, who was still blocked, and changed outfits twice. First into a modest dress. Then into something far less modest. Black. Tight. Bare at the back. No bra. No panties. Just soft skin and defiance. I knew what I was doing. I also knew he'd hate it. Good. 9:23 p.m. The sound of the front door unlocking pulled me off the couch like a shot. I stood, slowly. My heartbeat didn't ask permission. It just started racing. He stepped in, phone still to his ear. Navy blue shirt rolled up to his elbows. Jacket over his shoulder. Jaw sharp. Tired. Angry. But then his eyes lifted, and saw me. His voice faltered mid-call. He didn't speak. Didn't blink. Just stared. At the dress. My bare legs. The curve of my hip leaning against the banister. Yeah, I'll call you back, he muttered into the phone. Then silence. I didn't move. Neither did he. Where did you go? I asked softly. Work. His eyes flicked over me again, jaw tightening. What are you wearing? A dress. That's not a dress. That's confidence, I cut in. It's what women wear when they're not afraid anymore. I could see the pulse in his neck throb. He tossed his keys on the table, stepped toward me, then paused. Go change. No. Mof. His voice dropped. Now. I walked slowly toward him. My bare feet against the hardwood floor the only sound. No, Tulu. I'm not a child. You don't get to lock me away until I'm old enough to wear what you like. I'm grown. I'm free. And I'm tired of pretending. He turned away, as if the sight of me hurt him. As if he was 1 second away from losing it. I followed. You're angry because I looked like a woman at that party. But I am a woman. And the fact that I have curves and lips and legs you can't stop staring at is not my fault. Stop. Or what? I whispered. You'll send me away? Lock me in my room? Or maybe, you'll finally admit what this really is. His back was to me. His shoulders so stiff they looked carved from stone. But he didn't speak. I stepped closer, my fingers brushing the edge of his shirt. Tolu, I said, voice soft but strong. Do you want me? He turned around so fast I stumbled backward. But he caught me. Fingers clamped around my wrist. Not roughly. But firm. Too firm. Do not play this game with me, he growled, eyes wild. You don't understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly, I said breathlessly. You don't. You think this is a fantasy? A flirt? This isn't safe, Mof. I'm not looking for safe, I whispered. I'm looking for truth. His hand dropped mine like it burned him. He stepped back, his chest rising and falling like he'd just run a marathon. Then he did something I didn't expect. He laughed. Low. Bitter. Angry. You want the truth? He asked, eyes blazing. Fine. You're beautiful. You drive me insane. And every night I force myself to forget that the woman sleeping under my roof isn't mine. Silence. Just that. Just the breathless truth between us. I swallowed hard. My pulse was thunder in my ears. Then stop pretending, I said, voice trembling. Stop hiding. He looked at me like I was a drug, the kind you couldn't touch without falling apart. But he didn't move. And neither did I. The tension between us had teeth now. Sharp. Real. Hungry. But I wouldn't beg. He had to cross the line. And until then, the game was mine. The sun streamed through the windows like it had no respect for secrets. I stirred beneath the silk sheets, my fingers brushing over the soft fabric as I reached across the bed instinctively. What was I thinking? My lashes fluttered open to find a note resting on his pillow, a smudge of his cologne still clinging to the pages. Had to step out early. Get some rest. We'll talk later. Tolu. I sighed, propping myself up on one elbow. My hair tumbled around my face like a curtain, and I tucked it behind one ear, the memory of last night swirling around me like mist. Not the kiss. That hadn't happened yet. But everything else, the confrontation, the emotion, the tension stretched so tight it hummed in the air, it was enough to keep me burning through the night. My lips still tingled from his gaze. I sat up fully, the sheet falling to my waist. His oversized shirt hung loosely on my body, his scent wrapped around me like a cocoon. My gaze swept the room, clean, masculine, sharp. I felt like an intruder and something more. Something claimed. I tossed the sheet aside and climbed out of bed. If he thought he could keep dodging me, disappearing every morning after stirring me up like a storm, he was wrong. The kitchen was too quiet. I padded barefoot across the cool tiles, opened the fridge, and pulled out the leftover jollof rice I made the night before. I set it in the microwave and stared at the clock. 10:46 a.m. Where did he run off to? Work? Meetings? Or was he avoiding me? The microwave beeped. I sat on the stool by the kitchen island and took slow bites, scrolling through my phone, but my mind wasn't on any of it. I was plotting. Planning. If he wanted to pretend nothing was happening between us, fine. But I wasn't a child anymore. And I wasn't going to be treated like some fragile little girl he needed to protect from his own feelings. I needed to get out of the house. I texted the driver and asked him to take me to the mall. There was something therapeutic about shopping for yourself, especially when your heart was wrapped in knots. I browsed through racks of clothing, picked out a few pieces, bold, form-fitting, elegant. I wasn't buying these for him. But if he saw me in them? I smiled at the thought. I got a wax. A manicure. A pedi. Took myself to lunch. Watched people. Watched couples. By the time I returned home, the sun was already preparing to set, brushing the sky with blush. I walked into the house and knew he was back before I saw him. His scent was in the air, spicy, cedar, commanding. I heard voices. His parents were in the living room. I paused. "How's Moph?" his mother was asking. "She's good. She's still finding her rhythm," he replied. "You're watching her too closely," his father added. "Let the girl live. She's not a child." Tulu didn't respond. I changed into one of the new dresses. A short satin robe-style number that wrapped around my waist and showed just enough thigh to be dangerous. The neckline dipped low, framing the swell of my breasts. I let my hair cascade freely down my back. Then I waited. The knock came just before 8 p.m. I opened the door, and there he was, tall, commanding, jaw set. His eyes dropped immediately to the robe. He froze. "You asked to talk?" I said, leaning against the doorframe. His gaze darkened. "You went out?" I shrugged, playful. "Yes. And I bought new things. Want to see?" He exhaled sharply. "Moph. Don't play with me." I tilted my head. "Who's playing?" His jaw ticked. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. My heart thundered. "What are you doing?" he asked. I walked slowly toward him. "Claiming space. You've kept me locked in the image of a girl. But you and I both know I'm not one anymore. That doesn't mean I placed my hand on his chest, stopping his words. "Then why do you keep running? Why does your body respond like this?" My hand pressed slightly harder against the beat of his heart, every time I'm near. His breath hitched. "You don't know what you're doing," he whispered. "I know exactly what I'm doing." He closed his eyes, like he was trying to rein himself in. "Tell me to stop," I said. His eyes opened. Heated. Wild. But he didn't speak. So I leaned in and kissed him. Soft at first. Testing. Searching. Then he grabbed my waist and pulled me hard against him, kissing me back like a man who had held back too long. We kissed like fire and rain, like anger and longing, like everything we'd buried under the weight of what we shouldn't want. He lifted me onto the dresser without breaking the kiss. My legs wrapped around him instinctively. His lips trailed down my neck, and I gasped. Then he stopped. Pulled back. Breathing hard. "We can't," he said. I blinked at him. "Why not?" "Because once I take this step, Moph, there's no going back." "Then don't go back." He stared at me. Then brushed his thumb against my cheek, slowly. I'll come back when I've calmed down. He walked out. Left me breathless, aching, and utterly turned inside out. The next morning, I woke up to the scent of breakfast. I walked into the kitchen to find him at the stove, barefoot, shirtless, stirring eggs like he hadn't almost broken me with a kiss the night before. He turned when he sensed me. "Morning, trouble. You sleep okay?" I leaned against the doorframe. "Tulu, we need to talk." He nodded, serious now. "We will. After breakfast. No running. I promise." And for once, I believed him. We ate in silence, side by side on the veranda. Sunlight spilled across the tiles, warming my bare feet. A lazy breeze shifted the curtains behind us. He sat in cotton shorts and a loose tee now, legs stretched out, plate balanced on his thigh like this was any other day. Like he hadn't kissed me senseless the night before. Like his hands hadn't roamed my body like a map he'd once sworn never to touch. "Why are you pretending nothing happened?" I asked, barely above a whisper. He didn't look at me. "Because I'm trying to make sense of it. It wasn't a mistake, Tolu." His jaw worked as he stared at the garden beyond the balcony, eyes narrowed like he wanted to disappear into the hedges. "It wasn't right, either." I dropped my fork. The clatter was sharp in the quiet morning. "Stop treating me like a sin you can't wash off." That made him turn. His eyes found mine, steady, worn, full of something like regret, and something else. Something darker. Hotter. "You think this is easy for me?" "I think you want me," I said, voice trembling. "And you're too much of a coward to admit it." His lips parted slightly, nostrils flaring. A muscle jumped in his jaw. "I raised you," he said, voice low and tight. "I could have also changed your diapers. But you didn't, even if you did. I would have grown out of them." "That's the problem," he snapped. "You grew." We stared at each other, breath caught between the things we shouldn't say and the ones we already had. Then he stood, took both our plates, and walked inside without another word. But the tension followed him like a storm cloud. And I let it. Afternoon, around the house. I found ways to be in his space all day. Crossing paths in the hallway just as he came out of the shower, towel low around his waist. Lingering by the fridge while he reached for a drink, pretending to look for something just so our arms would brush. Leaning into him too closely when reaching for the remote, letting my chest brush against his arm, just enough to make his breath hitch. Each time, his body tensed. Not like he was disgusted. But like he was fighting himself. Fighting us. We didn't talk about the kiss again. But it lived in the silence between us. In every glance. Every brush of skin. In the way his eyes would drop to my mouth and stay there a second too long. Or how his hand would curl into a fist when I walked away. By evening in his study, I stood at his doorway, watching him work. He looked up slowly, eyes raking over me with an exhaustion that had nothing to do with the papers in front of him. This time I wore something simple, denim shorts and one of his old t-shirts tied at the waist. Still, his stare lingered. Trailed down my legs, back up to my neck. "I'm going for a walk," I said. He nodded. "Don't go far." "I won't." I turned to leave, then paused. "Tolu?" He looked up again, his pen still between his fingers. I hesitated. "Are we just going to pretend nothing's changed?" He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples slowly. "I don't have an answer for you yet." I nodded. But as I walked away, I smiled. He said yet. Later that night. There was no knock this time. Just the soft creak of the door. I turned from the window where I'd been standing, heart beating slow, deep, deliberate. Tolu stepped in, closing the door behind him like he'd made a decision he couldn't unmake. He didn't speak. Just crossed the room, each step quiet, heavy, like a man walking into danger with both eyes open. We stood face to face. His eyes moved over me, cataloging everything. My bare feet. The old t-shirt barely covering my thighs. My breathless stillness. He reached out, his thumb brushed the edge of my jaw, featherlight, reverent. "You're not a child anymore," he said, voice raw. "No," I breathed. "And I'm not your uncle or related to you by blood." "No," I said again. His lips found mine, slower this time, but deeper. Hungrier. It wasn't like the first kiss. No urgency. No firestorm. This was a claiming. A surrender. His hands cupped my face, holding me like I might slip away. His thumbs traced my cheeks, his mouth parting mine gently, carefully, until I melted into him. I slid my hands under his shirt, feeling the warm, hard ridges of his back. He groaned softly into my mouth and deepened the kiss. When his hand slid beneath the hem of the shirt, his shirt, and found bare skin, I trembled. He paused. Our foreheads pressed together, breath mingling. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. I looked him dead in the eyes. "I'd rather die." That was all it took. He lifted me effortlessly and laid me on the bed like I was made of silk. He kissed his way down, over my collarbone, the curve of my chest, the dip of my stomach, each press of his mouth a vow he couldn't say aloud. When his tongue met skin, hot, slow, unrelenting, my back arched. I gasped his name. His hands were everywhere, guiding, teasing, holding me still as he unraveled me. When he finally entered me, it was slow. Measured. Like he was trying to remember every second of what it felt like to have me. Our fingers locked. Our foreheads touched again. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. We moved in rhythm, building something only we could understand. And when we both broke, together, trembling, hoarse from whispers and moans, he didn't pull away. He wrapped himself around me. Buried his face in my neck. Breathed me in like peace. And for the first time, there was no guilt. Just gravity. I woke up alone. The sheets still smelled like him. The ache in my limbs wasn't from sleep. I stretched, slowly, smiling at the soreness. At the memory of his breath against my skin, his weight pressing into mine. Then I saw the note on my nightstand. Left early. Didn't want to wake you. We'll talk tonight. Tea. I smiled. Then curled back into the sheets. Because this time, he wasn't running. The note was simple, but it had stayed with me the whole day. I clutched it like a lifeline, like it could anchor me in the swirl of my thoughts. Every hour passed like a crawl over broken glass. I didn't see him all day. Not even in passing. But I knew he was around. The gate hadn't opened. No car had pulled out. I could feel his presence in the walls, like the house was holding its breath for us. By 8 p.m., I'd already changed clothes 3 times. First into something casual. Then something sexier. Then back into casual again because it felt desperate. Then finally, a silk robe, pale champagne, short, barely decent, the kind of soft arrogance that said I'm not trying, but I know what I'm doing. I waited. And then I heard it. His knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps on my door. I opened it slowly. He stood there, freshly showered, dressed in a dark tee and loose sweats. Hair slightly damp. He didn't come in immediately. He just looked at me. "You look comfortable. You said we'd talk." "I did." He paused, then entered, closing the door behind him. But he didn't sit. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "I need to say a few things first," he began. "No interruptions." I nodded. His voice dropped, low, rough. "You are not a child to me, Zara. Not anymore. Maybe you never were." My breath caught. "I tried to be the man my father would have wanted me to be. Tried to shield you, protect you, but what happened last night?" He ran a hand through his hair. "It tore me in two. You were in my arms. I didn't want to let go. I still don't." I stepped forward, slowly. "And if I said I don't want you to let go?" He exhaled sharply. "Don't say that unless you mean it." I reached up, fingers brushing his chest. "What if I do?" His hands closed around my waist, firm but not pushing me away. "This isn't the time." "Then when?" I whispered. "When I'm gone? Married off to someone I don't even know? When I'm used up by men who'll never worship me the way you do with your eyes when you think I don't notice?" A growl vibrated through his chest. And then, he kissed me, his hands were in my hair, mouth crashing into mine like a storm breaking over dry land. The kiss was everything, months of tension, years of unspoken feelings unraveling between us. He kissed like he was starving, like I was something forbidden he'd finally decided to taste. His hands cupped my face, his mouth devouring mine as he backed me up against the wall. The silk robe slipped from my shoulder. He paused, eyes dragging slowly down my frame, before pulling the belt open with a single tug. It fell to the floor. So did every last word of hesitation. "You have no idea," he murmured, "how long I've wanted to forget who I am when I look at you." And then there were no more words. Only hands. Mouths. Heat. His body pressed to mine, lifting me, carrying me to the bed like I weighed nothing. He hovered above me, fingers grazing my inner thigh, his breath ghosting over my skin. I've imagined this too many times. Then stop imagining. And he did. He kissed down my chest, trailing slow, reverent heat between my breasts, down my stomach, until I gasped. My back arched beneath him, and he held me down with one strong hand while the other drove me to the edge of madness. Every motion was deliberate. Controlled. He learned me like a song he already knew the rhythm to. And when he finally took me again, it wasn't rushed. It was slow. Deep. Possessive. Like he was claiming every inch of me, rewriting every part of my body with the memory of him. Our bodies moved in a rhythm older than guilt and far stronger than resistance. The walls of the past blurred, melted away under the heat. I clung to him like he was a storm and I was tired of sheltering. Later, tangled in sheets, I traced lazy circles on his chest. "What now?" I asked. He turned toward me, eyes dark and unreadable. "I don't know. But I'm not walking away." I swallowed. "And me?" He leaned in, brushed his lips against my forehead. "You're mine. Whether you realize it yet or not." Silence. Then his phone buzzed, once, twice. He ignored it. We stayed like that, wrapped around each other in the dark, two people too tired to run anymore. Next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. He wasn't beside me. For a moment, I panicked. Was it a dream? But then I heard his voice from the kitchen. He was humming. The rich sound of him, barefoot, shirtless, hair mussed and happy, grounding me back into the realness of the night before. He had made coffee. Toast. Eggs. Simple things. But everything felt new. "Good morning, firecracker," he greeted without turning. "Your leg still working?" I flushed. "You're ridiculous. And you're stunning. Sit. Eat." We sat across from each other, sipping, chewing, exchanging glances full of things we weren't yet ready to say aloud. But we would. Eventually. Because something had broken. And something else had begun. He took me out. Not to a restaurant. Not to some fancy lounge where everyone would know his name. He drove us to the outskirts, to a quiet hilltop overlooking the city. The lights below sparkled like fallen stars. "I come here when I need to think," he said, leaning against the car. "About what?" "About whether I've become the man I promised I'd be." "Have you?" He looked at me. "Not yet." The silence stretched between us. Then he reached into the glove box and pulled out a velvet box. My breath caught. He opened it. Inside was a delicate gold chain with a tiny pendant shaped like a flame. "Why a flame?" "Because you're fire," he said. "Not the kind that burns. The kind that forges things." I touched it, fingers trembling. "Is this your way of saying goodbye?" "No," he said. "It's my way of saying I'm choosing you. But I'm doing it right." His eyes locked onto mine. "No secrets. No shame. No guilt. Just us. And when the time comes, I'll stand in front of the world and tell them you're mine." Tears welled up in my eyes. We drove back in silence. But it wasn't awkward, it was thick, full. Every glance he threw me across the console felt like a caress. I held the flame pendant in my hand the entire ride, letting the fine gold chain run through my fingers like a thread I never wanted to snap. He'd said it. Out loud. No secrets. No shame. He was choosing me. I stared at his profile as he drove, the calm curve of his jaw, the way his hand sat heavy on the gear, casual but controlled. His skin glowed faintly in the dashboard light. And still, even after everything, he hadn't touched me again. Not since that kiss on the hill. My heart ached for it. My body buzzed, waiting. By the time we pulled into the driveway, the moon was high, draping the compound in silver. He cut the engine and looked at me, long and deliberate. "Go in," he said quietly. "I'll lock up." I didn't move. "Do you want me to come to your room tonight?" I asked. His knuckles tightened on the steering wheel. "Yes," he said. "But I won't." I blinked. "Why not?" He exhaled, then turned fully to me. "Because I want the next time to mean something." I swallowed. "And last time didn't?" He leaned in then, slow, his hand brushing the side of my face, fingers threading into my hair. "It meant everything. Too much. That's why I'm going to do this right." My heart skipped. "And how do we do that?" He smiled faintly. "We start tomorrow." He didn't pull away anymore. Not from my touch. Not from my gaze. Not from the fact that I belonged in his orbit. Breakfast wasn't awkward. He made omelets while I sat on the counter in one of his shirts, and he didn't flinch when I pressed my bare leg against his back. He leaned into it. He drove me to the bookstore downtown and waited outside, watching me through the windshield like I was his secret pride. When I came back, he opened the car door without a word and handed me coffee. I swear, I nearly kissed him right there in the parking lot. That night, we sat on the couch, legs tangled under the blanket, watching something neither of us were really paying attention to. At one point, I shifted to lay my head on his thigh, and he just sighed, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. His fingers played with my curls. Nothing more. Nothing less. 3 nights later. The weather shifted. Heavy rain slammed against the windows. Lightning cracked. The power flickered, then disappeared completely. I found him in the kitchen lighting candles. The shadows danced across his face, and for a second, he looked like something out of myth, half man, half fire. "Tulu," I said softly, stepping closer. "Come to my room tonight." He didn't answer. Just lit the last candle and blew out the match. I was ready to argue when he turned, took my hand, and led me down the hall. Silently. Not to the guest room. Not to the couch. But to his room. He undressed me like I was made of something finer than flesh. His hands mapped my skin with reverence, slow and certain. No rush. No frenzy. Just tension built from days of restraint and tenderness. "You sure?" he whispered against my jaw. "I've never been more sure of anything." He made love to me like a man who had memorized every version of my body in his mind and was finally allowed to touch it. It was slower this time. Deeper. More intentional. His hand gripped mine as he moved inside me, our eyes locked. No guilt. No hiding. Only yes. Only this. I came undone with his name on my lips, not in a whisper, but a cry. And when he followed, his face buried in my neck, his breath ragged, I held him close. Tighter than before. Because this time, there was no going back. And neither of us wanted to. The sun was sharp, a golden glare dancing on the windshield as we cruised down the coastal road. The windows were up, the air conditioning soft and whisper cool, but I still felt too warm. Maybe it was the silk blouse that clung to my back, or maybe it was him. Tulu looked unfairly good behind the wheel, shirt rolled at the sleeves, veins visible, one hand lazily gripping the steering while the other rested near the gear. He hadn't said much since we left the house. Just a nod when I emerged from my room in my fitted black skirt and that blouse that made me feel both exposed and powerful. I knew I looked good. That was the point. But what I didn't know was how this would go. We were no longer in the house, where desire could be whispered against skin, and silence meant safety. This was the real world. "Everyone will be there?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He glanced at me, his eyes flicking over my legs before returning to the road. "It's a charity art gala. My mother insisted we attend. Some senators, a few governors' wives, old friends of the family. No one dangerous. Unless you count snide Lagos women with high brows and loose lips." I smirked but my stomach tightened. "And me? What am I tonight?" He slowed to a stop at a red light and turned fully to face me. "You're mine. That's all they need to know." My breath caught. Simple. Bold. Dangerous. The venue was sprawling, glass, light, and laughter. A tall building that smelled like money and old perfume. People milled about in designer gowns and expensive cologne. I walked in beside Tulu, my hand looped loosely through his arm. But I felt eyes. It was subtle at first. A tilt of the head. A pause in conversation. Then a full stop. Like a wave building across the room. I wasn't introduced right away. Instead, Tulu did what he always did, calm, confident, and in control. He greeted people like a prince at court, speaking in Yoruba, switching to French, then Pidgin, his voice a low thunder that made women lean in. I stayed close but silent. Until she arrived. His mother. Mrs. Femi. Still striking at nearly 60. Regal in a floor-length blue lace dress, head wrapped high, eyes like polished glass. She took one look at me, and smiled. With warmth. With acknowledgement. And something sharper. You brought her, she said simply. Tolu didn't flinch. Yes. She's always been part of the family. Her gaze slid over me like cold honey. So this is how you repay our late friend. I hope what I'm hearing is not true, that she's warming your bed. The words didn't sting because they were false. They stung because they were true. I don't know what you heard, but she's mine. Always has been, he replied coolly. The silence that followed was heavy. And then, he took my hand. In front of her. In front of everyone. Solid. Public. Defiant. Later, when we slipped into a quieter corner by the marble fountains, I let out the breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. You didn't have to do that, I said. Do what? Make a scene. Hold my hand. Defend me like that. You're already giving me so much. He turned to face me, his voice quiet but steady. I'm not giving you anything. You're not some rescued orphan, Mof. You're a woman. My woman. And they'll all see that, tonight and every night after. His words coiled around my chest like silk and steel. I wanted to cry. I wanted to kiss him. I wanted both. But I just nodded, holding his gaze as the water behind us rippled in rhythm with my pulse. The car ride home was tense. He didn't touch me. Didn't even look my way. But I could feel the energy radiating from him like heat. Controlled. Rigid. Boiling beneath his skin. My fingers twisted nervously in my lap, nails digging crescents into my palm. The silence in the back seat was deafening, only broken by the faint hum of the tires against the asphalt and the occasional hiss of his jaw tightening. I didn't dare say a word. Not until we got back to the mansion and he dismissed the driver without even acknowledging me. Inside, the marble echoed our footsteps as we ascended the stairs. I thought he would go to his room. Lock the door. Retreat into silence. But when he reached my door, he stopped. Then turned. Inside. Now. His voice was low. Too low. It scraped something inside me raw. I entered, heart hammering, my back straight even though my legs threatened to give out. He shut the door behind him, the click loud in the heavy quiet. You want to tell me what that was, he said finally, turning to me. I blinked. What do you mean? The way you acted at the gala, he snapped. Smiling. Laughing. Letting him touch you. Were you trying to make a statement? I crossed my arms, suddenly defiant. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Don't play dumb with me, Mof, he growled. You were flirting. I swallowed. I was only being polite, he asked for a dance. What was I supposed to do? You were busy too. That silenced him. Just for a moment. Then, he stalked toward me, a slow, simmering rage cloaked in elegance. Is that what this is about? Payback? You want to punish me for hesitating, for not claiming you sooner? I held his gaze, breath shallow. Maybe. I've always wanted you, he hissed. From the moment you walked into this house in your mother's dress and looked at me like I was your hero. And I've fought myself every damn day since. He stepped even closer. I fought the guilt. The fear. The whispers that haven't even started yet. His voice dropped, raw and hoarse. But tonight when that boy laid his hand on your waist and you smiled at him, I nearly lost it. Not because of jealousy. But because I realized, if I don't fight for you, someone else will. My lips parted. Then, without warning, he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was possession. He devoured me like a man who had held back for too long. My knees buckled, but he caught me, lifting me, pinning me against the door with his body. His hands were everywhere, mapping, claiming, remembering. My fingers tangled in his shirt, yanking him closer. "You're mine," he breathed against my skin. "All yours," I gasped. And just like that, we tumbled into the storm we'd been circling for months. I woke alone. Again. But this time, the silence wasn't cold. It hummed with the memory of heat, of whispered names and fevered touch. A note sat on the pillow beside me. "Had to meet with my parents early. I'll see you later. We talked today. No more hiding, from me or anyone else." My stomach flipped. I knew what talk meant. The family. The future. The fallout. After dressing up, I walked downstairs, then I heard voices. I stood near the hallway, just out of sight. Voices drifted in. His mother was furious. "With all due respect, Tulu, she was a child when she came here. How could you?" "She's not a child now," he replied calmly. "She's your ward. Her father was our friend. What do you think people will say?" "I don't care what people say," he said, firm. "I care about her. And I'm not going to pretend anymore." His father's voice came next. Deep. Slow. "I always knew this day might come," he said. "The way you looked at her changed over the years. But you never crossed a line. And I raised you to know better than to touch what you couldn't respect." There was a pause. "She loves you, doesn't she?" "I'd burn the world to keep her," Tulu said quietly. I stepped out then, unable to stay hidden any longer. His mother's eyes darted to me. Hurt. Anger. Disappointment, but not hatred. "Mof," she said, sighing. "You have your whole life ahead of you. Why tie yourself to a man like him? A man who helped raise you?" I met her gaze, spine straight. "I truly appreciate you taking me in when the world was against me," I said. "You were kind. You were generous. But I was always temporary. Always waiting for a life to start." I looked at Tolu. It started the moment he chose me. From the moment I stepped feet into this house, it has always been him. His mother's face softened just a little, but she said nothing. It was his father who stepped forward, hand on Tolu's shoulder. "You're a grown man. She's a grown woman. You'll both answer to the consequences, good or bad. But for what it's worth, you have my blessing." I exhaled slowly, feeling something settle deep in my chest. The door closed with a soft click behind me. My heels lay abandoned by the door. The weight of the evening pressed down on my shoulders like 1,000 unshed layers: guilt, relief, desire, rebellion. I paced slowly across his room, every breath feeling different now that we weren't hiding. His father's words echoed in my head. "You'll both answer to the consequences, good or bad." I wondered what that truly meant. For our future. For our sanity. But then I heard the door open again. Tolu walked in, his tie loosened, his face unreadable. He didn't speak right away. He just watched me, eyes trailing down my body in that way that always made my skin feel like silk slipping from a hanger. "You heard everything," he said, not a question. I did. He took a deep breath and stepped closer, stopping only when our chests nearly brushed. "I meant every word." I swallowed. "Even the part about burning the world?" His voice dropped, thick and low. "Especially that part." His hand came up, cupping my jaw, thumb brushing beneath my lips like he was trying to memorize them. I leaned into him, lips parting, my body aching for something I couldn't name. But instead of kissing me, he rested his forehead against mine. "Mof," he murmured, "you have no idea what this does to me. Having you like this, no secrets, no fear." "I do," I whispered. "Because I feel it too." The silence between us pulsed with something hot and unspoken. Then, finally, he kissed me. But this wasn't like before. This kiss wasn't cautious. It wasn't controlled. It was claiming. One hand slid behind my neck, holding me in place as his tongue found mine, slow and deep and possessive. The kind of kiss that unravels everything careful inside you. The kind that makes your knees buckle, and your morals tremble. My hands went to his shirt, fingers working the buttons open, needing to feel skin, warmth, him. When his shirt hit the floor, I stepped back to look at him, the man who once tucked me into bed as a child, who had become my protector, then my obsession, then my everything. And now, my choice. He moved faster then, lifting me with ease, my legs wrapping around him instinctively as he carried me toward the bed like I weighed nothing. He laid me down slowly, reverently, eyes never leaving mine. His hands roamed my body with aching precision, like he knew every inch, every soft spot, every place I needed to be touched. I arched under him, sighing his name like a prayer. Tulu. His lips traced fire along my collarbone. I want to take my time tonight. No rush. No fear. Just you and me. And that's exactly what he did. Every kiss was slow. Every touch deliberate. His mouth worshipped me, tracing a path from my jaw to the hollow of my throat, to the curve of my breast, his hands gentle, his breath hot. I gasped when his mouth found the peak of my chest, licking, sucking, teasing until my fingers tangled in his hair. When his lips traveled lower, I arched again, trembling as he learned my body like a new language, patient, fluent, obsessed. He tasted me with reverence, coaxing sounds from my mouth that I didn't even know I could make. And when he finally joined our bodies, he did it with a softness that felt like breaking. I cried out, not from pain, but from how much I felt. How real this had become. We moved together slowly, his forehead pressed against mine, his lips whispering my name like a secret. Our rhythm was intimate. Deep. Unhurried. As if time didn't exist, only the sacred collision of want and memory and love. By the time we both collapsed, slick with sweat and breathless, the only sound was the thudding of our hearts. His arms wrapped around me, his breath warm on my neck. I'm never letting you go, he murmured. And I knew he meant it. Please subscribe, like and comment your favorite scene and character. Part 2 coming soon.